Hey traders, checking into the stock market today. So the initial signs of bear exhaustion that we observed yesterday followed through. We got a really nice setup as far as the most probable scenarios playing out, and I'll show you what those were. All right, so we're going to look at mostly the same tickers from yesterday just as it is a good follow-up. So pre-market, every morning, up with the sun, game plan established. Okay, where are we pre-market? What is the setup that we are looking for? So yesterday in the video, I gave a little bit of insight saying if we gap up open, we look for the consolidation. So starting from scratch, this morning, 7:30 a.m., gap up opens as bulls try and find temporary bottoms. Aggressive bears are looking for names that have not confirmed hourly trend changes off of their lows, and they're scouting for entries to profit from that hourly consolidation taking place. Patient bulls are waiting for hourly consolidation to scout higher lows. So aggressive bears are looking for entries first thing, for a gap up open into profit taking and into hourly consolidation. Patient bulls are waiting for that hourly consolidation, anticipating hourly higher lows, and then needing to confirm the hourly trend changes for daily bounce continuation. I am personally watching XBI, IWM, CCJ for these hourly higher lows. We can look for 5-minute oversold conditions or wait for a 5-minute trend change back to the bulls to try and shape up. Most sectors and individual names that broke fear lows are not seeing any follow through, which is the bear exhaustion that I talked about in the video yesterday. So that's the game plan. Aggressive bears, you're looking for shorts. Patient bulls are looking for longs after that profit taking. So SPY, first thing this morning, we open, we chop around a little bit. We drop down into 5-minute oversold conditions, lower high, lower low. That marks the low of the day. Then we set an hourly higher low at the low of today, anything above the low of yesterday, and then we follow through on the bounce. QQQ, same deal. Bears had their opportunity on the morning. We open, we chop around, and then we dumped. The 5-minute RSI got down into the low teens. So drop down here, then we saw a bounce, lower high, drop down to the lower low. And what I did this morning, I had a little SQQQ that I entered at the end of yesterday, scaling back in a little bit. Gap up open, that position is red. 5-minute RSI in the teens, I'm exiting that short position because I know that I'm looking for an hourly higher low on a ton of names. So all out SQQQ on this drop. I actually played this bounce playing TQQQ, locked in that profit real quick. Didn't reestablish a position on that fresh low. In hindsight, that would have been a good idea, but essentially exited my shorts, played a little bit of longs, and I was playing XBI at that point as well. And we'll get to that when we get to it. But that was just a couple of the trades that I took this morning. Again, anticipating that gap up, consolidation to hourly higher lows into bounce continuation. So SPY and QQQ on the daily time frame here, tightening up. And tomorrow's going to be fairly telling for me. Because again, keeping in mind that we've got 7 trading days left in the year, what I'm just looking for an answer, are we going to tighten up into the end of the year or not? And anything under 472.87 is just a daily lower high here on SPY. So if that's what we get, a daily lower high, and then we pull back a little bit, we can chop around definitely into the new year. And then we look for a break of our tightening range after that. So I would love to see a gap up open tomorrow. Why? To do the exact same thing as today. I want a gap up open to be looking bearish, but this time I would have a bit more conviction because there's the potential that the gap up open into consolidation could potentially shape up daily lower highs on a lot of names. There's a lot of names that are looking for daily lower highs to be the result of this bounce. So just keeping that in mind as a potential to be watching for tomorrow, but watching that daily resistance up in the 472s. Hourly uptrend is our guide. When we lose the hourly uptrend, it's the first indication of the potential daily lower high being set. QQQ is similar. Nice bounce. Again, the hourly consolidation into 5-minute oversold conditions. Hourly higher low set. Bulls take over. Anything under 398.48 is just a lower high. Remember that NASDAQ resistance zone that was so critical for us and still is on this 4-hour time frame. Not in play, but we're keeping an eye on this zone next time it does come into play. So watching for the potential of a lower high to be the result of this bounce. Hourly uptrend is our guide. Semiconductors benefited as well. Again, we broke the fear low with no follow through, straight into a bounce. Same thing though, anything under 305 cents is just a daily lower high. Nope, wrong number. Anything under 312.35 is just a lower high. So at this point, we've bounced $14 off the low, but we are still $10 below that high. 4 hour is now another name that we can add to our list as far as 4 hour falling supports that keep holding. And that's keeping this weekly consolidation healthy still. So good day for the semiconductors. NVDA had a nice bounce. It's got its 4 hour downtrending support line we've been keeping an eye on. And as far as our resistance line coming a bit closer into play, but still not really. I'm looking at that. And again, NVDA, a lot of space. Anything under 311.60 is just a daily lower high. AMD, great setup. I think I pointed it out yesterday for the inverse head and shoulders. Gap up or higher open. Profit taking into the hourly higher low. Bounce continuation. And 147.93 is key resistance for the bulls to try and confirm this inverse head and shoulders. Big day out there for the bulls just as far as conviction. It was the kind of day where halfway through the day, I said, I'm not looking bearish anymore. Bulls win the day, and it's just a trending day when all sectors are showing that kind of strength at the same time. I did make one attempt to top fish CCL, which confirmed the daily trend change. Again, over the weekend, all weekend, COVID headlines. That must be why we're opening week on Monday morning, right? Then why are the travel names exploding to the upside the last 2 days? In my opinion, traders, investors recognized the most probable scenario was playing out and the fear was already priced in. So I was looking for a head and shoulders here. And I shorted right here, stop over the high, a little bit of wiggle room, and stopped out. And again, just one attempt. For me, when I see it's that kind of day, I will take one attempt, small risk, top fishing, looking to try and nail a top. And if I stop out, I'm not just going to constantly try and short, keep scaling in without a stop loss and have a huge loss. It's the last thing I'm going to be doing on a trending day. Tesla, decent bounce, but again, hitting fresh lows. So I'm remaining very patient on Tesla, and hourly technically has not changed the trend bullish because we dropped down to fresh lows here. So significant bounce, have to see an hourly higher low and higher high tomorrow if that bounce is going to get any follow through. But anything under 995 is just a daily lower high. And what I would like to see is one more lower high and lower low to get towards daily oversold conditions. But that's also me being a bit picky. Keep an eye on Baba. Look at Baba trying to shape up. This is the 2-day time frame. Low, high of the bounce, higher low. And this would be bulls attempting a bigger picture trend change if we can get over 129.45. So I'm keeping an eye on Baba and these Chinese names to try and reverse this very prolific weakness that we've seen all year. And that would just be baby step number 1. Healthcare, daily inside bar still holding the EMA 12, still very healthy consolidation overall. Not really a huge factor today, but definitely on Team Bull. Everybody was on Team Bull today. XLF, big time bounce. Again, fear low broke, straight into a daily bounce. Anything under 39.74 is a daily lower high. And we're just chopping around. Daily trend change, straight into a support break, straight into a bounce. There's definitely a lack of clarity on the daily. So what do? I just look at this last 4 days because that's clear for me. Big drop, solid bounce, but scouting a daily lower high to be the result of that bounce, at least initially. IWM, notable for the bulls here. They were a top watch for me. Again, just the bear breaks with a lack of follow through, bear exhaustion. So 219.90 is daily resistance. We're still in a daily downtrend. So bulls still have proving to do. The hourly uptrend is our guide. No real hourly higher low set on this 2-day move for IWM. So on a gap up open, definitely watching for some potential consolidation, but the hourly uptrend is our guide. And XBI. So I traded XBI again today. This is the 3rd day in a row. I've traded XBI bullish. Friday went real well. Yesterday went well. And today just dropped. 5-minute oversold conditions. So I know I'm scouting XBI for an hourly higher low, anything above 112.15. 5-minute oversold conditions. Great, I'm gonna start scaling in. I make one entry. I think I said I would have made a second entry if 114 would have broken. I was live streaming at the time. And then the bounce plays out. So I sell half of my position into the bounce, and now I'm risk-free again. And the amount of times that I've been able to get risk-free within the first 10 minutes of being in an XBI trade the last 3 days is extremely comforting. There's nothing to think about at that point except where am I going to take my profit or am I going to stop out break even. So we then had a really nice 5-minute tightening range. And at this point in time, we started to see a bear correlation. How do I see a bear correlation? I'll show you. Correlations, I'd say, if you ask me in the last 3 years of trading, what is the most significant positive change? It has been wedges and recognizing correlations and sticking with them, not trading counter correlations. If I recognize a correlation, that's the only direction that I'm looking, as long as that correlation is present. So at this point in time, I was already in a position where the correlation was against me. But look at this. So IWM. So we're dumping to start the day. IWM's going up. But we have a 5-minute equilibrium. The equilibrium breaks bull on XBI at 11:10. And again, I'm not doing anything at this point because I'm in my break-even position with the stop under the low of the day. So I'm just letting the bulls do their thing. And we broke resistance at 11:10. And at that point in time, same thing here. So we broke resistance, 5-minute higher high. New high of the day on IWM was hit at 12:05. Here's 12:05. We don't have a new high of the day. So that's the first signal of a bearish correlation. IWM, the sector that we trade comparative to, and the sector, or I should say correlated to, and the sector that we've had a bullish correlation with the last 2 days of trading, which has been why I've been focusing on XBI as a bull. That's the first sign for me that it was now a bear correlation because IWM hit a new high of the day and XBI did not. So then IWM traded sideways and didn't really do anything for an hour, and XBI rolled over. So as soon as I recognize that bearish correlation, I'm just walking up my stop with the 5-minute higher lows every time, and I stopped out right here. So exited the second half of LABU on XBI breaking there, locked in a nice win on the day. We then triple bottomed at 115 and saw a significant move back to the high of the day, but I was done with it at that point. Actually, I did take one more trade. There's a 15-minute cup and handle setup where we had, it wasn't a cup and handle. It was just a clear double top into a 15-minute bull flag. So I re-entered here, bull break, and not much follow through, and I just exited with a very tiny win as I was about to live stream at 3 p.m. But that was it. The hindsight would be, XBI's bounce, much less significant than a lot of other names. So the last 2 days, choosing XBI was the right decision, but I look back and say, what were some clues? I didn't get the clues until, an hour and a half into the morning and until I was already in that trade. So in hindsight, things I would have done differently, I don't think I would have done much differently. I could have gone into NVDA and that bounce would have been way more significant if I played the NVDA morning weakness into the reversal. So there are definitely some coulda, woulda, shouldas for better gains, but again, in hindsight, the clues weren't presented to me until late enough in the process that it was just letting it play out at that point. So it's been a really good last 3 days, all through the biotech sector and all through bullish biotech sector. What I would like to see tomorrow is a bear break. Not sure we're going to get it, but what I want to see is this double top 117.14, 117.11 inside bar today. I want that inside bar to break bear. Maybe I'll look to play it bearish if the broader market were to pull back tomorrow. But what I want to see is a tightening range. Anytime I'm not in a position, tighten up as much as possible. And I'll trade within that tightening range and then wait for the break. But I like to see one more daily higher low before that double top of resistance breaks. If I could have my ideal way. Dollar is still sideways. Again, not getting much information, but if we're going to have confidence in these bounces and follow through, today was risk on. So today we had the IWM bulls going up as leaders on the bounce. We had cannabis names, CGC, Big Green Maribozu. I think it was up 10% today. So the cannabis sector stood out and the crypto names stood out as well. Bitcoin was green, and just look at the watch list here. There's a lot of green in crypto. Those are my 3 risk on gauges. IWM, crypto, cannabis, all green. You could look at it and say, you could look at the cannabis space and say, well, tax loss harvesting is done. And so when people are selling to harvest tax losses, and what that means is if I've got a big green year and I'm up 200 grand on the year trading, but I've got a position in CGC that's down 20 grand, if I sell that, rather than having to pay, let's say, 80 grand taxes on my 200 grand, I then have to pay 72 grand on my 180 grand of profit. So that's what tax loss harvesting is. You're offsetting, it's been a really bullish year for the market as a whole. So the names that are underperforming, you're offsetting. And if you look at a list, and Lori had a list where she had all of the most beat down names from their all-time highs this year, and they all had big green days today. So when you're seeing tax loss harvesting and everybody's saying, fine, I'm gonna sell my loser and offset some of these capital gains, hopefully, you see supply outweighing demand. And then as soon as that tax loss selling dries up, the scales tilt and you see demand outweighing supply because the last of the sellers have just exited the building, at least in the short term. So that was a bit of why we're seeing risk on names bouncing today, in my opinion. But one day is not enough. It's the second day for IWM that we're noticing this little difference, the first day for the cannabis sector. So we would have to see, again, continued bullish correlations. Today was the first day that the cannabis sector had a bullish correlation with IWM in as long as I can remember, which probably means at least a few weeks. So has to be persistent. If we start seeing day after day bullish correlation, that's when we start to take significant notice. So today is just the first little, okay, I'm paying attention now, keeping an eye on you. CCJ was another name that we highlighted yesterday, looking for the lack of bear follow through on the fresh lows. Anything under 21, make that 22.96 is just a daily lower high. I don't have a position. I wanted, there's too many names to keep an eye on. CCJ was one, AMD was one that I'd be liking to have kept an eye on, but in the end, exceeding goals, so that's all I can ask for. But what I would like to see, ideal world, reject from 22.96, give me one more daily high or low, and then change that daily trend to get the weekly bounce going. That's where we stand overall. If we gap up, we look for profit taking on the open. Aggressive bears look for top fishing plays first thing. Bulls will then look for hourly higher lows, but less aggressively than today. Why? Because we're closer, we're a bit more extended on the bounce, and we're a bit closer to daily resistances. And again, there's a ton of names that are just looking for daily lower highs to be the result of this bounce. So I would not be as bullish looking for those hourly higher lows. But again, it all depends on what the overnight trading session looks like and where we open. I have no idea what direction I'm going to be looking in tomorrow. And I will know that very clearly tomorrow morning by 7:30 a.m., which is why my pre-market prep is critical for my success. Do good things. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Hey everyone, for this chapter, what are we on? 11 something. We're heading over south. So just curled around, pretty much entered the middle of the state, Colorado, from the east, went through Boulder, went through Rocky Mountain National Park, went over into Aspen area, and then curled down into the south into Durango. And this is a little colorful rainbow lizard guy on his way. So I went to Mesa Verde National Park, which is a beautiful spot. And you can see how the landscape has changed from the giant mountains into more of a arid, deserty kind of feel. They've got Great Sand Dunes National Park down in this area of the state as well. But this is the area where they built right into the cliffside walls thousands of years ago. And these tribes are so fascinating with what they did. The soft sandstone, you can see where their handholds were as they would climb in and out of these valleys. And they would use them for, I should say, in and out of these, the side of these cliffs. They used them obviously for protection, and they had some really cool construction that's still around these days. And the petroglyphs are everywhere. And petroglyphs are really everywhere in the southwest part of the country, as well as the middle of the country here in Colorado. And it's really cool to just see, to stand literally where someone stood thousands of years ago and drew something that they felt was important enough to try and have it etched into time And in a lot of instances, there's these common themes like these swirls. We'll look at some more that I went to in Utah, but there's so many places where you can literally just, drive on a dirt road up to these petroglyphs and check them out with, no fees, no tours, none of that. They're just right there, which exposes them to, graffiti or whatever. But fortunately, some of them are left alone. But a lot of cool different swirl things. We can only speculate as to what they were trying to show. And another cool thing that this tribe of Native Americans did was they pretty much selected seeds, genetic modification in a more natural way, not, splicing genes and stuff, but they would save seeds from certain strains of grass, and they created corn out of a strain of grass. So this is what it looks like in terms of, the valley that they were inside of on the sides of the cliffs. But they would take these strains of grass and save the seeds for the ones that had the biggest, seeds. And then just over thousands of years, they ended up with a crop that had a head of fat corn. And it doesn't look like the corn that we have today, obviously, because that's just using further science to get it to the point where we want it. But a lesser degree, they were using genetic modification and seed selecting to create a crop. So, quickie chapter here. We're going to head on over to Telluride next. I love Telluride. Ended up impromptu stopping at a music festival, the Ride, that they have every year, and met someone through couch surfing. I've never stayed in anybody's place during couch surfing, but got some great tips on volunteering at this music festival and a place on where to camp for free right outside of town. And that was a wonderful, again, just another unexpected stop. It seems like the highlights of my entire trip were all ones that I didn't plan and were all from word of mouth from other people who knew better than I. So we'll head on down there and again, check out Colorado and Utah. Great two states right next to each other. You can make it, a week or two road trip and get a lot of sightseeing. I mean, you could really make it a 2-month road trip if you wanted to, but those two states together, just the fact that they're next to each other and there's so many national parks within a pretty close radius, I would suggest it. So we'll check back in. Hope you have a good rest of your day. See you soon.